YouTube Ozzico and the Go Nows is back with my updated NFL Power Rankings heading into Week 11 of this season. We're here every single Tuesday morning with this video. Our next video will be our weekly picks, so make sure you check that out. Make sure you like, subscribe, turn notifications on to join us for all of our great NFL content. This week's Power Rankings is interesting. A lot of interesting movement or non-movement. I think what caused that was the top teams at the top, some top teams losing. So excited to reveal these here. Check us out on Twitter. Very important. Links been in the comments for that. And our sponsors, Liquid IV, GLD Shop. Got a giveaway for the GLD Shop going on. Code GOAT on both those sites. Again, links pinned in the comments. 32, the Panthers are down one spot. 32 where they belong. Ugly outing against the Bears. Ugly outing for the offense. It was brutal. So, yeah, they're down where they belong right now. The worst team in football. 31's going to be the Giants. Yeah, they're injured, but they're still playing bad, and they're still dysfunctional. They're a mess right now. Just with coaching, with the players arguing, it's a disaster there. So they are at 31. 30 is going to be the Patriots down two spots. I mean, they played better, especially defensively against the Colts this week. And then you look at how they move the ball, like into the red zone. It was good. It was a very winnable game, but they just could not execute in the red zone. Just bad quarterback play. So they continue to lose. They're down two spots to number 30. 29, the Bears are going to stay put. Almost got moved up because they got a win, and the defense is starting to look pretty solid. I know they played the Panthers offense, but it's looking more and more like an Eberflus defense right now. Just not a whole lot of teams they can move ahead of. The Packers are down a spot. Bears almost slid ahead of the Packers. I just think overall, in general, the Packers probably been slightly better this year, but it's getting pretty close. Packers played fairly well, except for the run defense against the Steelers. A game they probably could have or should have won. But I guess there was some progress at offense, but they're still down a spot to number 28. 27, the Cardinals are going to go up 5 spots. Yes, they only have 2 wins, but a lot of this, my power rankings are, winning, losing, how you're currently looking is how you currently look is a big part of it as well. And they look like a much better team with their quarterback. Now, that's the furthest I was going to move them up, though. We can't really move them, off one win and say we can't really say that's their full identity, but they look better with Kyler Murray. Obviously, they got a good win. And they did beat the Falcons. The Falcons have more wins than them and have been better in general on the year. So the head-to-head people are probably going to cry about that, but it makes perfectly good sense that they're not ahead of the Falcons. Ranking 32 teams here based on their whole year. But the Falcons are struggling right now. They're down 2 spots. Just bad quarterback play. Maybe it's time for Arthur Smith to go. I thought things went their way in that game too, and they could not find a way to pull it off. They almost did, but couldn't quite do it. Titans down 3 spots. The team can't play away. They haven't won a single game away outside their stadium. Even when they had technically a home game, but it was in London against the Ravens. They lost that game, so they cannot win outside their stadium. And that's a pretty bad look. You're going to have to win away games. They look brutal against the Bucs, a team that was ice cold. Titans look like a good team at home, though. That's why they're a weird team when it comes to these power rankings. Is when they'll go play at home, and they look really good. It's like, okay, let's move them up. And then they go play, and they're going to play away again next week, too. So they're going to have to figure it out on the road there. They looked pretty bad against the Bucs this week. Offensive line was awful. The tackling was awful. Jets are down 6 spots. They're very disappointing right now. They were squeaking off some games, and I think teams kind of figured them out now. They're good in coverage, and they're good with their pass rush. They can't stop the run. The offense is obviously awful. So a game they should win. Against the Raiders, I think a game where it's going to be a defensive game, and the Jets defense is supposed to be better than the Raiders defense, and you're going against a rookie quarterback, and for them to not be able to find a way, it's pretty bad. It's a pretty pathetic one in my opinion. So they're down 6 spots to 24. Commanders are down 2 spots. I mean, there's multiple games this year where the Commanders lost and they showed some decent things. This maybe was one of them, but I still just hate how the offense and defense, I talk about it all the time. They cannot be on the same page at the same time. It's like impossible, and that's team football. So, when you're not really playing as a full team, it's, going to hurt you in a power rankings like this or something like this. So they're down 2 spots. They had that one, it felt like against Seattle. Then they were playing the safeties were playing like 40 yards off the ball. Otherwise the game could have went to overtime. So they're at 23. Raiders starting to heat up, the post Josh McDaniels era, the Antonio Pierce era. They're up 4 spots. Yeah, they beat up the Giants and they squeaked by the Jets. They did outplay them, so somewhat impressive. Still want to see more, but they did win 2 in a row and they're playing better football, so they're up 4 spots to number 22. 21, the Bucs are also up 4 spots. That was a good win against the Titans because the Buccaneers were getting cold, and then they play the Titans and they dominate them. I thought that, according to the score, they dominated, but I thought they beat them by more than that, actually, if you watch the game. So it was a really good outing, both sides of the ball. So we kind of needed to see that. They're a tough team. Like, even some of these losses, even during the losing streak, you could see like they're not like that pushover. They're not that free win type team that some thought they could be. So they're up 4 spots to 21. 20 is going to be the Rams going to stay put off the bye. Then the Colts are going to stay put. Wasn't overly impressed with them against the Patriots. They squeaked by. I was impressed with the red zone defense, but the offense is, I think kind of playing to their talent now. Before it was kind of like schemed up, Steichen offense. Now it's kind of playing to where their talent's at on the field. Teams starting to game plan for it. Defensively, they gave up yards. They just clutched up in the red zone. So I think they're just taking advantage of beating up these easier teams. But I was impressed with the Panthers game. We talked about that. They moved up. I was like, even though it was the Panthers, I was impressed that the defense stepped up. And the defense stepped up again on this one. But they're going to stay put at 19. There's not enough there to move them up. 18, the Saints are down 3 spots. Yeah, disappointing out against the Vikings. A pretty good comeback, but just overall, yeah, brutal start. Got outplayed. They're down 3 spots to number 18. 17, the Broncos are up 6 spots. We see Sean Payton's old team and Sean Payton's new team right next to each other. The Broncos are on a little bit of a win streak here, and during that win streak, they beat the Chiefs and they beat the Bills. The game last night was a strange one. And I think that luck was definitely on their side, throughout that entire game. But they were making plays at the same time. They're finding ways to win. I still really worry about their run defense. They've been beating good teams, so overall, very impressive. They're night and day better than earlier in the year. They're for sure better than earlier in the year. They're getting some things going. They're up 6 spots because of that. Run defense, I still wonder. Like, they might play teams that are worse than the Bills and the Chiefs, but are a little bit more firm on running the football, and that could get the Broncos. That is the kind of the thing I'm still wondering with them, but they've been picking it up, so they're up 6 spots to number 17. Chargers going to stay put. I love the offensive outing. I just hated the defensive outing. They put up a fight with a pretty good team, had an opportunity to win it. The teams below them just don't really feel like they're better than the Chargers right now. The Broncos are coming, though. If they continue this, they'll play a big game against Minnesota. The Chargers will also play an NFC North team. Will be the Packers, though. 15, the Bills are down 3 spots. Yeah, they've had a rough year. I know the injuries play a big part, but they're losing to the Patriots, losing to the Broncos. You can feel during the Broncos game that they are better than the Broncos. You can see it, you can feel it. They've had some uncharacteristic. They do turn the ball over, but not 4 times. And then 12 men on the field, and it's just, things just really didn't go their way, but they still lost, and they're still been disappointing. I just feel like what they presented on the field over the, during this year, they're still better than some of these teams below them. So you feel like they're deserving of moving out a whole lot just based on, being disappointing, losing to the Broncos. But, there's a lot of teams that aren't too good this year in general. You look at their whole resumes. So, but they're down 3 spots to 15. Steelers are going to stay put at 14. They're winning. They're finding ways to win. Doesn't really look pretty. I love the run game. And they were clutch, I guess, getting the turnovers, but they were giving up big plays to the Packers, which the Packers haven't been able to do. Passing game wasn't there. So I wasn't overly impressed. I do like where the run game is heading the last couple weeks, where the Packers' run defense is very, very bad. But they're finding ways to win, so they're going to stay in the top 14 here. The Texans move up 4 spots. You beat a really good and hot team in the Cincinnati Bengals. You look pretty solid on both sides of the ball while doing it. You're kind of getting a win streak together here. They're going to move up 4 spots to number 13. Then number 12 is the Vikings. Vikings are tough, because when have I had a team on a 5-game win streak not move up more than 1 spot, number 12? So so that's a tough part. But it is good to see them in the top 12. But the top 11 teams, yeah, some of them are losing right now, but it kind of just feels like they're better teams when you watch them on the field. I guess it's the debatable one I had, where I kind of debated with myself was maybe the next team. But the Vikings are rolling right now. They're beat up, and that's crazy that they're the hottest team in football right now when they're beat up, but they're even more beat up going into Sunday Night Football in Denver, so that's going to be interesting. But, they've been impressive. I think if they would have finished the game how they started the Saints game, I would have had to move them up more than one and probably much more than one because it was like they look like the best team, and not that they were, but they looked like the best team in football in the first half of that football Saints game. And the second half kind of came back down to earth a little bit, but things weren't going their way. But if they finished how they started that game, it would have been tough not to give them a major, major boost. But overall, they've been moving up piece by piece, little by little. They're up one spot to number 12 because they're playing some pretty good football right now. I can't believe it's just shocking to me. Without Kirk Cousins, without Justin Jefferson, it's pretty wild. Number 11, the Bengals are down 6 spots. This is a tough one, too, because you could argue maybe you slide the Vikings or the Texans ahead of them. But, yeah, the Bengals missing T. Higgins, and, and before this game, they were, you got to remember, right before this game, too. They were one of the hottest teams in football. Overall, they've looked like a good football team. So you can argue both sides of this again. So if they've looked really good recently but lost, why did they move down a whole 6 spots? Record does play a part. We're not going to order teams by their record completely, but it does matter in my power rankings, and their record really isn't good for the Cincinnati Bengals. So they kind of need to be in this range, but and they're coming off a loss they shouldn't lose. You'd think, at home, 7-point favorites. I thought that was too much, but still 7-point favorites. So pretty disappointing. So they will move down 6 spots. They will play the Ravens on Thursday Night Football. Both teams a little beat up, so we'll see. 10, the Dolphins. Yeah, interesting situation. They're on a bye. They are coming off a loss. If they were coming off a win, it'd be a little different here. But they are coming off a loss and a bye, and they move down 2 spots. So how is that? It's just other teams, what's going on around them. There's some top teams that lost, but even with those losses, they shouldn't be behind the Dolphins. Remember, the Dolphins are coming off a loss. Those teams that we'll talk about that loss have been better than them this year. So that kind of pushes everybody back. And then some other teams with very impressive wins have to move. Well, I guess one team with a super impressive win. No, it's 2 teams. What am I talking about? I have to move ahead of them. So the Dolphins, just unfortunate. Off by, move down 2 spots based on what's going on around them is what caused it. So, number 9, Seattle, staying put. They did beat the Commanders. I guess I do like that they were able to be clutch on offense because they haven't really been able to do that recently. But maybe it wasn't the most impressive game. I kind of took that final drive to beat the Commanders. Another team with the offense, defense can't really get on the same page. They're at 9. Sometimes a team will win and still move down if other teams just need to move ahead of them or a team wasn't overly that impressive while winning. That was almost the case with the Seahawks because, again, the Dolphins were on a bye. So the Dolphins almost moved down a spot and pushed the Seahawks down a spot. But, again, the Seahawks did have that where they were able to clutch up on offense and Geno was able to play better. So I kind of needed to see that. So that kind of helped. Like, it was impossible to move them down with that being, even though it wasn't the greatest game, the most appealing game for them, that was still present in there. So couldn't really move them down after a win. The Dolphins, again, coming off a loss and they're off a bye. Number 8, the Jags are down 5 spots. They were one of the hottest and best teams in football. They were at 3, and they got obliterated by the 49ers. Maybe they got knocked the rust off after the bye week. Maybe it's one of those situations. I don't know if it's for them. They're kind of a veteran team. Well, it's not a crazy veteran team, and they were kind of fresh. They were new last year. But anyways, yeah, you get dominated like that. You're going to move down a bit. Just overall bad, but you do have to remember kind of what they've been doing before that. They've been a top 8 team pretty easily, so let's see if they can get back on track. They should at home against a team, the Titans, who cannot win on the road, and they'll be on the road in Jacksonville. So we'll see. They're down 5 spots to number 8. Browns are up 3 spots. They beat the Ravens this week, one of the top teams in football. So they're going to move up. It's a weird game because at times the Browns did look bad. They start the game with the turnover for a touchdown. Watson's looking a little sketchy. He's hurt, and he's limping around. That's not looking great. Defense is giving up big plays. They're down. So that's the bad part of that game where there's still some things where I want them to be a little more consistent. That's my thing with the Browns because the defense at times looks like it's the best in football. It's elite, and at times it's not. And the offense can be clutch, but sometimes it's struggling a little bit. But then they come back and they beat the Ravens. They take down the Ravens, who've been maybe the best team in football recently. And it was very, very, very impressive that they were able to overcome everything and win. So they're up 3 spots to 7. I want to see them put something consistent together to be up with the big boys. They can beat the big boy. They beat the Niners. They beat the Ravens. They beat the Niners without their quarterback. So they're capable of beating the big boys. I want to see them stay healthy, one, but consistent as well to get up even further. But getting into within the top 8, top 7, going up 3 spots means I'm very much impressed with the Browns. And it seems like every time I have the Browns in the top 8, people complain in the comments, but it's where they belong right now. I know you're rooting against them, but that's where they belong right now. 6, the Cowboys up a spot. They did dominate the Giants as they should. I want to see them put something a little more consistent. They have those bad games kind of pop up. I don't know if I'd put the Eagles game as a bad game, though, but their most recent game was a loss before this one. But they're up a spot to number 6. I think if they would have done that to a good team this week, or just beat a good team this week, they probably would have went higher than 6. It'd probably been tough to not. Just a little bit more to build up the resume, but they were impressive this week, but as they should be. Top 5, the Niners are up 6 spots, number 5. That's the 49ers. They get healthy, and they show me what a healthy 49ers team could do, and that is be one of the best teams in football. So dominate the hot Jacksonville Jaguars there. So they're going to go up to number 5, up 6 spots, back where kind of they belong. It's just, if they didn't have that losing streak, we'd be talking about them at number 1, obviously, so top 3 maybe. So, but very impressed with that outing. I mean, you have an outing like that, it's going to help you in my power rankings. So, up 6 spots, number 5. Number 4, the Chiefs are going to stay put. This is where it got a little tricky. That's why I said in the beginning of this video, this was an interesting week of power rankings because, a lot of top teams lost. I guess not a lot, but a couple of them that were number 2 and number 3. But the Chiefs, they're going to stay put at number 4. They almost moved up a spot while being on a bye, but they ended up staying put. The Lions are going to go up 3 spots to number 3. Defense was poor. It was bad. That's the tough part about moving them up. That's why it's a little tricky because I want to see their defense play better. And when we're talking top 3 teams, I do want to see a little more completeness, but the offense was elite. The offense was fun. It was in LA. They found a way to win. It was interesting. The game was I guess it really wasn't back and forth. I think that's the way you want to explain that game, but it really wasn't. It felt like the Lions were going to win the whole time, if that makes sense. It was like the Lions got the lead. The Chargers are tying it. The Lions got the lead. So I wasn't really sitting there. I was like, yeah, the Chargers could win this game, but I really wasn't sitting there saying the Lions might lose this game. I kind of felt like they had the game, but I do want the defense to play better. If they played a complete game, we'd probably be talking about them at number 2. I thought about 4. That's why head-to-head really doesn't matter that much at all. People want to complain about it, but when I can't, when it's something is like a tie, when I can't really decide on something, you can use that as a deciding factor, and maybe that played a little bit of a part with the Lions Chiefs. Even though it was week 1 and weird things happened, it still exists on the resume. But the Lions have been a really good football team. I don't know what happened in the Ravens game, but they've been a really good football team this year. They are up 3 spots, number 3. And this is where it gets interesting because the Ravens just lost to the Browns, and I am disappointed with the Ravens in the fashion. We talked about in the recap video, in the fashion of how they lost. When it first happened, I'm like, that's tough. Classic Ravens choke. But they kind of got unlucky. They're still a great team, and, it's whatever. That's kind of how I thought of it. But then when I really looked at the game and analyzed things, I still think they're a great team, but that's a bad loss because things went your way. Especially to start this game, and you have a lead, and you're just outplaying your opponent. Things went your way, and for you to lose that one, a game where you're favored, by 6 or whatever points, and because you're the best team in football right now, you cannot lose that game. It's so bad. But it's so tough that, I guess to deal with them in the power rankings here. But because if you lose like that, you probably should move down. But at the same time, the Jaguars, who are right behind them, got obliterated. They moved down. The Chiefs were on a bye. The Niners did win, and they won in dominating fashion. That's why they moved up 6 spots. But they're also coming off a 3-game losing streak. We could not move the Niners up more than that. The Cowboys are coming off before this one against the Giants. They're coming off a loss. The Browns had beat the Ravens, but they're having struggle staying consistent. But I like the Browns. They're in the top 7. So as you see what I'm explaining here, and the Ravens just obliterated the Lions a couple weeks ago. I feel like the two teams that have been playing really good football. You match them up against each other this year and recently, who's been playing better football, and the Ravens have been playing better football. So as you can tell, it is impossible to move the Ravens down, even though that was a terrible loss. The more and more I think about it, it's pretty damn terrible, and it kind of makes you wonder if they can get through the playoffs, game by game against the best to the Super Bowl when they're capable of that. It does make you worry a tiny bit, but with everything I just said, you cannot move them down. They've still been playing really good football, and they played really good football during this game as well, even though they lost. So the Ravens are actually going to stay at 2. And if the Ravens would have won while the Eagles were on the bye, the Ravens would have kept up the domination they had in that Browns game for a bit. If they would have kept that up and finished like a multiple score win, they probably would have been number 1. So that was a tough one for the Ravens, but Eagles going to remain at 1, best record in football easily, staying consistent. They'll play the Chiefs 1 versus 4 Monday Night Football in Kansas City. Cannot wait for that. The Ravens played the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. That's going to be fun as well. But yeah, so that's why I said in the beginning of this video, it's kind of like an interesting movement or non-movement in this video, and I think it starts with number 2 and number 3 losing this week. So that, you got to look at, it's like a puzzle. You got to look at, not people, like fans look at one team and be like, complain about it. You have to look at the other team, what the other teams are doing around them too. So yeah, very interesting week. So we'll see what happens here in week 12. Some big games. We're starting to kind of get into that push for the playoffs. So we're kind of getting there. We're just still mid-season, but just past that point. So I'm excited. Hopefully you can join us for our other videos that are coming for this week. And we're always adding more videos. Still got to do like a players ranking video halfway through the season. I want to kind of touch on the hot seat, coach's hot seat, and then potential candidates, for the offseason, coach candidates. So join us for all of our content. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.